I'm here with Preetha Lal. She is an authenticity coach and she founded Be the Sequoia, which we'll learn a little bit more about later. And first, Preetha, I'd like to welcome you to the summit.
Thank you. Thank you, Dustin. I'm so happy to be here, so honored to be here. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me as well. Thank you. Um, to kick things off, I would just like to hear a little bit, um, if you don't mind, a little bit more about personally how you got into coaching and what kind of things led you to this and how it's benefited you in your life, learning the things that you now teach others.
I appreciate that. I don't know if I teach, I continue to learn for sure. So a little bit of background. I came to the United States from India in 1998. And I got married in 97, came to Utah. I did not even know there was a place called Utah on the map, but then I fell in love and have been here since for all these years, my husband and I. And for the first 15 years of our marriage, I worked. I chose to be a full-fledged career woman. I had the opportunity to travel to distant lands, doing workshops and leadership development and team development and all of that fun stuff. I think I was barely turning, no, it was before I turned 40. I had three car accidents very consecutively within the span of a month. Did not acknowledge them. So I would get hit, I would send the car to the rental, pick up the rental, and send the car to the body shop, pick up the rental, and then I'd be driving. And there's a reason I'm sharing this because I'll come back to it later. And this happened three times. And then I noticed after about a month of all of this, every time I'd go into physical therapy, I'd get hit again, right? So, and these were no fault of mine. During the same time, my husband developed mono-like symptoms, but it wasn't mono. He got tested for everything, but it would take him 15 minutes to walk from the bed to the bathroom to change. So I remember keeping all his clothes and, making sure everything was there, and I'd go to work, probably get hit or whatever and come back. And then he healed, and then after a month of all of this, my spine locked up, so I couldn't get up one morning. And then I developed mild depression symptoms. And the person you see now, as after the accidents, I was very withdrawn, and I didn't even know what was causing that. Got into this victim mode. I was angry about everything. And my boss, my brother, and a dear friend, three of them noticed this, and they said, "Preetha, you probably need to talk to someone." And I am so grateful I did that, because what I had was a mild, trauma-induced PTSD. I went through therapy, all of the citalopram for my hyperactive serotonin issues. And then I turned 40, and my husband and we've always been the world's greatest aunt and uncle. And we thought, maybe we could do this parenting thing. And at 41, I had the most beautiful little girl. She's 13 now. She's in middle school. And so for the first 12 years of her life and the first 12 years of my life as a mom, I decided to be home. I decided to be home, to be present. Because when I was in my career, Dustin, I was very present. I loved what I did. It was fun. It was exciting. It was all. And so I wanted to give that same energy to my child and to myself. And I would never, ever, ever not do it. It's just looking back. Of course, there are days she's a teenager now. They're like, but my gosh, no, she's an angel of a human being. She's a very, very good girl. And I am so grateful. So as she went to middle school, I found myself thinking back and saying, okay, what next, Preetha? You don't want to be this clingy mom hovering over your child when you have been a very emotionally independent woman all your life, made decisions. And I've been very blessed that my husband has supported me on this. My parents have supported me. And during these 12 years, one of the things I continued doing was writing and reaching out to people on social media. And one thing that has remained unchanged, Justin, from when I was 16 and decided to pursue economics and then pursue human resources, get my two masters in HR and OD, till today, is that people are happiest when they are themselves. And when they are not, you, me, anybody, they're unhappy. And their unhappiness is projected by unkindness or unhappy gestures or anger. And so as I started to think back, I looked back at my career and I said, okay, do I want to go back and do the corporate thing? But no, my priority remains, you'll see on my website, as first mom. So I want to be the one who either picks up the child if it's a bad day from school, or is the one to open the door when she walks in, right? That is non-negotiable. So what is negotiable is what I do with my time and where do I want to spend my time. And as I look back in my career, I found the biggest joy when I was able to work with people one on one and find that light bulb come on, right? When they were successful about something, they were happy. They were themselves for that fleeting moment. They were present and they were passionate. They were just there. It didn't matter what the outcome was, or even if it was a part of a journey, right? So that's when I decided to get certified by Jay Shetty and enrolled in their program. And as I went through the program, you did your quizzes, your tests, your practicum, you did your lessons or whatever. I started to think about what do I want to focus on, because I've done group coaching, I have done team development, I've done leadership development, I have done a lot of work with change and transformation. But then, as I kept thinking and asking whys, on each of these, I kept getting back to the self and telling myself, wait, I cannot do all of this, or nobody can, unless you're truly authentic to who you are, right? The reason I enjoy my motherhood is because I am authentically present. The reason I am enjoying this moment is because, well, I'm not hacking up my lungs coughing. That's a different matter. But because I'm present, I want to do this. If I didn't want to do it, it wouldn't be genuine, right? And as I have spoken to people, men and women, after a certain age, somewhere we get lost a little bit, right? We get um, little bit distracted with so many things around us that we uh, sometimes forget who we really are. Am I the girl who still loves to splash on rain puddles? And why do I not do it? Why do I care so much? And given I was raised in Kuwait and in different parts of India, given I am from a very different culture and faith, and I live in a place that is a very different culture and faith, for me, differences are normal.
Right.
I have normalized that in my head because unless somebody's different, life is very boring. And because of those differences, the desire for authenticity is so paramount because we are sometimes so drawn to belong, to fit in. We forget there is a difference between belonging and fitting in. And hence my passion for authenticity, hence be the sequoia, hence the workshops and the whatever I do. That was
That's
a
good.
long answer.
Yeah, no, I loved it.
And I promise it wasn't scripted because it was authentic.
Great. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the very last thing you shared there about how life just feels boring when you don't have like all these different experiences going on. Like that's one of the things that I think I enjoy most about my life is I really enjoy meeting new people and people with new experiences and new like ideas and things to share. It's just it brings so much color to my own experience here. So
So
yeah,
true. It would be so boring if everything was textured free, right?
yeah. Yeah. And it's like some of the things I thought about were just how, like for me personally, the way I look at it, like there's so much beauty out there, and each one of us has so much to share.
Yeah.
And when I have learned my own personal path and I'm kind of discovering myself again, that
Mhm.
person, I mean, like you talked about, the
Yeah.
younger me that I've somehow kind of bottled up and hidden away inside.
Right.
I'm like discovering him again. It's like
Hmm.
realizing I have my own uniqueness outside
Yes.
of being the family I grew up in and how I think and how I interact with others. I have this uniqueness and this beauty to share, and it's realizing everyone has that. You have
Hmm.
that. Everyone listening has that. And it's just supporting people in that and supporting and allowing them to be that version of themselves is what's so important to me. And having that sense of freedom that comes with that. But yeah, thank you for sharing.
I would that is what I loved when I read your first email. I was so that is what hooked me. I genuinely love this discussion of differences. But it's interesting you said about your younger self and now. Would you humor me for a 2-minute exercise that we could do
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
one-on-one, and then the speakers, anybody, speakers or the listeners listening in, they could try this with anyone. So, if you had to pick three objects or three things to define your younger, current, and present self, if you want, I can give you an example of mine, but I would rather you
No,
tell me.
I can come into this cold. So three objects, right?
It could be objects, not situations so much, but something tangible.
Okay, something tangible. I like that.
Something
Okay.
tangible.
All right. Well, knowing myself, being very creative, probably a large part of my life is sculpting. So the first thing that comes to my mind is um, a lump of clay, honestly.
So when your younger self was a lump of clay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, nature has to be in there somewhere. Something tangible, the mountains, the mountain.
Your current self.
Well, honestly, my younger self. Okay, how young are we talking?
Say you're 10 to 13, 15, that
Okay.
age. Or even, yeah, yeah. When you're old enough to think about things. So
Okay. Let's
and,
say
and yeah.
let's say a campfire. Um,
Okay.
we'll
Why do you
keep
say that?
because at the time, as I got older, I definitely found myself up in the mountains more, involved in like rock climbing, mountain biking, things like that,
Sure.
and a lot of
Sure.
solitude there. But in those younger years, I guess like my more preteen years, it was more that I really enjoyed going on camping trips with my family and just
Mm.
being out in the pine trees and having fires. And that's something that's always
It's
appealed
a
to me.
memory that you hold. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just love fire. And I've always loved fire. But um, yeah, and we could keep the clay. 'Cause that's been a part of me since I was a child.
Sure. Yeah.
And okay, a third thing would be,
Your future or your current, what is your
oh,
current, what do you think of your current self?
oh,
What
okay. Sorry. I thought there were three objects of
No, 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 no. So one for each. Sorry, sorry. It's okay.
Okay.
We're doing this live.
Okay, yes, yep, I got this. Okay, so we'll say the fire, and
Yeah.
then an older version of myself will keep as the clay, because that's been a prominent part of my life, and an
Okay.
important one. And then the third thing, I guess, would just be
But your future
honestly,
self.
yeah, my future self would be my family, my partner Abby and our children.
Okay. Okay. See, I love this because in your own way, you have defined your journey. And this is a part of the workshop that I do. And I often do this just to get people to talk about themselves. If you were to ask me, my younger self, I was water. I flowed, it was too easy to please, right? Flow into any container, very little regulation of whether I was steam or ice or liquid, right? Because of the way I would react or act. Currently, I think of myself as a cup. I have better boundaries. I know what goes in, what comes out. I know how much I can hold. But when I see myself in the future, maybe 10, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, I see myself as I see this weathered wind chime in my deck. And the reason I say a weathered wind chime is because it has withstood a lot of elements. You know how the bamboo gets all kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, it has lost its looks. It's not so pretty. But dang, when the wind blows, it doesn't matter if it's a breeze or it's a storm, it has its own beat. And I want to be that. I want to be able to. So every time we talk to, and the reason I brought this up is because when you talk to about differences, it's so fascinating, Dustin, to hear this from different people and get them insightful about their own journey. We don't always put it out there. you know? Just now
Right.
you see a lump of clay and a fire and this family of yours all together. There's your Christmas present for you, my friend.
Thank you. Um, yeah, that was fun hearing yours as well. Like it's like um such a great way to connect with someone.
Yeah,
Um, I'll
right?
definitely be sitting with that a little bit more later and probably ask Abby.
I yeah, I would love to know what she says and your kids even. I am well, they're too young, but even so, how they define how they look at themselves because we don't
Yeah,
always spend some time. And I found the people I work with, we keep a lot, I myself included, of what our perceptions about ourselves when we are younger, good or bad, frames who we are and our self-image.
yeah,
And so I hope our listeners do this with their, I don't know, professionally or personally. I think it's a fun exercise.
absolutely. And I hope that as well, because honestly, I think, like you mentioned, just being able to vocalize outwardly with someone else, inner feelings, in inner dialogue and actually kind of causing yourself to go inward. I feel like that's a big part of what my journey has been about is learning to go back inward and to actually feel into my body and see, am I a yes? Am I a no? What is it that I actually want, rather than living this life that I was taught would bring me
Precise.
happiness or fulfill.
Precise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so
It's
happy you've found such a beautiful path and you've found a partner and you're in such a good place. I read your story. I was very inspired.
Thank you. We've been great partners for each other. It's been an incredible journey and it's still expanding so much,
Mhm.
with everything that we've been doing. So, um, all right, I would love, to hear more about Be the Sequoia and the idea behind that.
The idea behind that. Yeah. So if you go through my website, which is bethesequoia.com, the analogy you will find or the story you will find is that of a journey. Now, the reason is I find perfection overrated. And I find unless you're in a journey, you're stagnating. Duh. There is a word in Sanskrit called charayvati, means to keep moving. And it's only when we're moving, we're growing, we're learning, even if you're moving backwards, we're still learning. In fact, we're probably learning more if we're moving backwards a little bit to go ahead.
That's a beautiful thing to point out, actually. Thank
Isn't it though?
you.
Because
Yes.
we are so our mindset is progression
Yeah.
upwards, exponential. And so inadvertently, we set these parameters for ourselves, which nobody has set, but we have said, oh, I have to do all these things to be happy. I have to do all of these things to be successful. Who determines success for you? I mean, if it's not you, then who, right? So for me, we went to Sequoia National a few years ago, my husband, my daughter, and I. And it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. What was most inspiring about those trees, and this was long before I'd even thought about coaching, was the sequoias grow very tall, as we know. They're hundreds, thousands of years old. They're very, very old. They have withstood time, and you look at them and you think, wait a minute. There have been fires. There have been elements. There is snow. Those we lost, I want to say 45 degrees of temperature as we went from the bottom of the thing all the way up to the top. So if you see our pictures, we were in t-shirts when we were at the base and we were up there, we were layered with 3 jackets. And so that's how much of a range of temperature a tree sees. So when we were here, we were at the base of the Sentinel, one of the taller trees. And then when you go up there, you still see it, but that's a single tree withstands all of that.
Yeah.
So we went to the visitor center, read up on it, and turns out this was so fascinating that the core of the tree remains the same. Every time the elements, I don't know, ravage the tree, it's the bark. It's the bark that gets eroded. It's the bark that burns. It's the bark that regrows, which preserves the core.
Hmm.
And that just was so spiritual for me. that I'm thinking, oh, even in our own faith, I'm a Hindu, we believe in the soul, right? And most faiths believe in something which is deep and core and inside, and that needs to be protected and nurtured. And here was this tree, a single tree facing a difference of 45 degrees of temperature and flourishing, right? So this was on my mind anyway. When I started this thing about making sure and my business is not very new, although I feel I've been talking to people forever. My coaching business is about a year and a half old, a year, yeah, a little more than a year old. We were thinking of the names. My husband, my daughter, and I, we were brainstorming, and then she's the one. He said, "Mom," she said, "Mom, it could be the sequoia." And the more I thought about it, I was like, "Yes." Because if your authentic self is what you are going to work on, you will have to learn how to draw your boundaries, where to put your limits, where are your, what are your limiting beliefs? What are the ways you can grow to protect and nurture, which will give you that longevity of character and life, right? And
Yeah.
so that is why Be the Sequoia. And also the place was beautiful. It also goes well with the concept of the journey that I think about when I think about life coaching. I'm sure most people listening will know it has nothing to do with therapy. It is not like therapy. There's a lot of inner work that happens with a life coach, and that is why it is that inner work of that bark is what sustains the tree. I'll send you some pictures offline there are places where the core can be visible because the bark has burnt its edges. And they have created these, like crevices. You can almost go inside and stand. But it's sustained. So if you have not been to Sequoia, please visit it. It's a very spiritual place.
I've been there when I was younger, but it's been a while, and I know our family tried to go there a couple of years ago, and it just didn't
Yeah.
work out. But
I think you would love it. Your children would love it. It's gorgeous. It's a very good place for family because they have the steps and such or such. We saw a lot of people in like almost a reunion kind of a thing happening at different levels as we drove up because the steps are very comfortable. A lot of seating spaces by the trees and all that. So also another thing, the reason I like the name and why it resonates with the way I think about coaching or I think about authenticity is because at the base of a lot of these trees, there is this beautiful foliage of tiny, tiny flowers, wildflowers. And I love that they're not afraid to bloom there. So and they add to the beauty of this place. Everybody goes to see the trees, but they are doing their thing. They're just, covering the earth and covering the soil. And so in life, we have our roles, we have our places. Doesn't always have to be huge and lofty. We each have our role. And if we play it with authenticity and mindfulness, we give more than we think we do.
you could tell that so much thought has gone into what you've created with your coaching business.
Yeah, it's been very mindful, I will say. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Very intentional.
Thank you so much.
Um, I was gonna say earlier you asked what my guess was on why be the sequoia, and I was just
Ah,
gonna share.
yes, tell me.
I was thinking that maybe it was something to do with how small the seeds are, kind of in comparison to the tree, and maybe projecting some kind of reflection on kind of like recognizing where we've come from, what we are, and kind of honoring, I guess, what we've actually created of ourselves. I feel like you were kind of hinting on this earlier about all too often we think about the future, we think about where we're going, and we don't really give presence to where we are now and where we've been, and recognizing the gratitude that we should have for like who we are now. But anyway.
No, but the seed analogy is so potent because when I think about a seed, I think about an acorn and the oak. You
Mm.
know, how humble we could be if we thought from where we came. And so thank you for adding that to my thought journal. Next time I talk about it, I will mention you and I will mention this as well. You're so right. They're very tiny seeds. In fact, they have this place where they talk about the botany behind, how the trees grow and how they're trying to keep the forest cover and such. And yes, they are very, very small seeds. Fascinating.
Yeah, it really
That's
is.
the thing. See how you took something so different. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's like the one thing I knew about the sequoias, aside from their incredibly large stature, is just that they come from such a small seed, one smaller than I would expect, I guess. And
Right?
that's always found that fascinating. But
Talks
um,
about a person's potential, right? Of what
right.
one can become with
Yeah.
that, keeping those few elements in mind. So, yeah, thank you.
So when you coach someone, when you mentor someone or guide them,
Mhm.
what kind of things do you do personally to help them in their journey of discovering themselves and learning to like let go of those things that kind of hold us from being, the versions of ourselves that we want to be?
Right. Um, Fantastic question. Be prepared for a long answer because I do this at multiple platforms. Okay. One thing that what my word, if I go through I was reading my own website and I'm thinking, wow, Preetha, you didn't even use AI, and this is really good. So yeah, there you have that. But I talked about change, constancy, and change and constancy. And one more word that I've added since 2024 began, that's been consistency. So one of the things I'm constantly doing in a consistent manner is putting thought bubbles out there on social media. I write, like this is November, so I'm doing a gratitude 30-day gratitude post, and they're about things that happen in daily life. I do a swell cast every Wednesday about a topic. Now, this is mainly to get people to think inward, right? And that is very important to me. I don't care if they come and talk to me and they become my client. I do care that people think about themselves. Okay, so that's one. When it comes to one-on-one coaching, what I have the discovery call. That's a 75 minutes long. It's free, and at during that time, what I have them do is to just talk to me. They obviously have some issue or a plan or a goal that they have come to me with, right? So somebody say they want to talk about a relationship issue with their sibling. Okay. That is what they want to talk to me. Preetha, I really need to talk about this. I'm like, okay, but tell me more about yourself. Let's go back and let's talk about you. And while we're doing that, I sometimes will do a couple of assessments to kind of gauge at how they look at their life from a helicopter view. Okay. I use a couple of tools, one or two tools to do that. And more often than not, people are sometimes so overwhelmed by one aspect that they don't step away. So, my purpose of a discovery call is to kind of help that individual to step out of themselves for a bit, talk about it as if they're a spectator to an event. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is, and sometimes people just don't come back anymore because they're like, oh, Rika, I'm like, oh, dang, I should have made this linger. I'm kidding. But I'm so grateful when that happens is because then people are able to see what is holding them back. So typically after the call, they go back and think about it. I summarize my notes, and then we talk about, okay, of all the pain points that you're feeling, what is your single pain point that is actually exacerbating, or there are multiple things that are causing it. So that diagnosis becomes pretty critical. And once we're able to come to that, then we work on whether it's a habit issue, whether it's a mindset issue, whether it's a self-confidence issue, and the whole thing is based on the individual talking.
Right.
They talk and they decide. And yes, my job is like a tour guide, or her dance part, or his or her dance partner, or holding up a mirror. But I've always said that you have to do the work, and this is your life. And guess who's the expert on your life? You are, not me. I'm
Yes.
here to help. And so that's one, that's the other modality that I use, the one-on-one. And my third thing is I offer a 6 session workshop on authenticity. And this one is more of a group. I love a group of probably not more than 5 to 7 people. And I am equipped to do this in person or online. I've done this at the local rec center. I'll be offering it again in January. I'm doing a little thing as a thank you to some of the middle school teachers next week. And I'm just doing one part of it. But we start with self-love on that session. And it is amazing how many people have a hard time talking about themselves
Right.
because that is either prideful or vain or a reflection of being, I don't know, proud. Um, but when we talk about self-love, people, the connotation is not selfishness. And so we get past that because to do any work on authenticity, you have to truly love yourself to accept yourself as you are, right? And unless you're able to do that in a mindful, thoughtful manner, the rest of the thing will crumble. So the first session is on self-love, some exercises on it. The second session is on authenticity. And one of the parts of that is the little exercise that I talked to you about. And then we talk about you know and I do another exercise with some stones, but that's more if it's in person. And then we leave that with the thought that, okay, I was water, I'm now a cup, whatever, and want to be a wind chime. What are things that are holding me back from moving from point A to B? So the third session is about mindset. It's about what kind of a mindset, what holds us back, and there's some exercises on it. We discuss the fixed versus the growth, and how we can look at a same situation from a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, and how that impacts us. And then we go further into it and say, okay, we've got the mindset, but then what's holding us back in the mindset? What are some barriers? What are some enablers? What are some habits that we can form to do this? So that's my fourth session on enablers and barriers and habits. And then the fifth session is about, oh, I've got all this down, but guess what? Someone's going to call me, or I have to be, XYZ place. And so I'm suddenly a puppet with all these strings attached. So what is my locus of control? What can I control? What can I not control? Where are my boundaries? So that's always a hard one because boundaries with people we love seem like walls, but they're not, right? If they seem like walls, but they're not walls, they are your own sanity checks so that you can love better, you can give more. So that's my fifth session, yes. And finally, interesting, I come to goal setting at the very end. And I'm saying, okay, so what I do is that right at the beginning, I'm like, okay, just put down 3 goals that you're thinking about this year, this quarter, this whatever. And then we come back to it. And by now, we have hashed out everything that's going to either hold us or push us towards the goals. And then we do our simple exercise, SMART goals, and then we leave it there. So that's the group session that I do. So those are my 3-pronged ways of enabling people be, or at least try to have a conversation with themselves about their own authenticity.
I enjoy how you've organized it. For me, it kind of feels like what you're doing is kind of getting them to tap into themselves and kind of experience more the emotional parts, and then start to recognize how they play out in more of our physical space. And then it's like, okay, now let's do the action and actually practice this. And for me, in my own life, that's been the harder part, is putting it into practice.
Mhm.
I found it far easier to start to learn to love myself. But then when it
Mhm.
comes to holding those boundaries or
Mhm.
being authentic to who I am in a relationship or a situation, it takes a lot more practice for me
It
to
is.
like actually be that.
Yes, it is. And that's why we try to hash these out with real activities, real examples. And it is amazing at how many tissue boxes are used.
I can imagine.
And sometimes it is more just acknowledging someone, their own pain point, or acknowledging that they're holding on to something because it was comfortable.
Right.
And letting go seemed harder, but the moment they did, they're like, wow, I didn't know. I didn't know that there was and as a coach, the easiest and the hardest thing is not to tell them
Right.
because it's not your life.
Right.
It's not about you. This is about them. And when they see it, it is so fulfilling, Dustin. It's just so fulfilling. Makes me happy.
I love it. And that's why I'm doing this, honestly, is because I've experienced this in my own life, just the same as you and so many other amazing people,
Yeah.
and are still experiencing it.
So it's
Um,
it's a continuous process.
right.
Mhm.
But it's like once you have this mindset, at least for me, once I've put myself in this mindset, it's so much easier to like go through life and to find so much more peace and freedom and love. Um, and just really experience it to its fullness, the best I can. And it's just been such an incredible mindset to have in my own life. And that's honestly what I want for other people is just to be able to kind of see life in that way where it's like, hey, just because I have this fear, just because I have these thoughts, doesn't mean that that's actually who I am or how I feel. Like I could sit with what's there, go inward and see what's actually there, rooted inside, and understand it, love it, and then move forward with you know, whatever intention you have. Uh,
So true. So
yeah,
true. And this journey towards authenticity, this journey inwards, as you probably know this better than anyone, is not a one-time destination. Your authenticity itself evolves,
yes,
right? At certain point in your life, you are this, and you're authentic there. But with more experience, more knowledge, heartbreaks, trauma, whatever, you evolve, and that's okay. It's
right.
okay to change. It's okay to want to change. It's okay to not like who you are at this moment. It is okay. And it is so sad people look for that validation outside of themselves.
My partner Abby and I, we've been moving through so much emotional and energetic work and just making changes in our life that we wouldn't have ever imagined we'd be making. And I think it was about a year ago we decided, similar to you, I was like, I can't do the corporate world anymore. It was just zapping me. I had no energy when I got home, being around my family, and I just didn't want that. I wanted a family that I could have more time with and really connect with. And so I quit my job. We sold our house. And this last year, we've just spent a lot of time focusing on our family and our relationships with each other.
Mm,
And what I noticed is that in putting a lot of that effort into it, it's actually kind of turned it back to myself and recognizing the need for having a deeper connection and relationship with me.
mm.
And as I've been learning what that looks like and becoming more and more that, um, back to that self, I've recognized that it's actually created such an amazing relationship with all the other people in my life, even sometimes random strangers. It's like I'm just able to kind of create these experiences with them that are so much more deeper and connecting than I've experienced previously in my life. And it's just brought so much more meaning to me. And um, it's what really gives me like that, like, I don't know, like that, like, I
Oh,
just really love life. It's
I
great.
think it's because, unhappy, hurt people. That's a beautiful phrase I read the other day. It's because you have a deeper connection with yourself.
Right.
You can help someone bridge that in someone else.
Yes.
You cannot give from an empty cup.
And it's funny because like beforehand, I was afraid to be
Yeah.
more myself because of being rejected by others or because of being misunderstood. And what I've actually found is in being myself, it's actually helped others open up and created a
Mm.
more meaningful relationship with them.
Safer environment. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
what's more refreshing than to talk to someone who is not pretending,
yes.
right? It's just it's not rocket
It's,
science.
well, I feel like a lot of times in my relationships, that's what I was afraid of ultimately is when either myself or someone else didn't feel like they were able to be authentically them, and it kind of
Mm.
creates this weird barrier between us. And yeah, things are just fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It is such a beautiful thing to hear your journey of how you got there, how you named your coaching business, all of it, the things that you do. It's been really enjoyable for me to listen to you talk and getting to know you.
Thank you so much, Dustin. Thank you.
Thanks for joining Preetha and I's conversation. You can find a link to her website as well as her free gift on the speaker page where you found this video.